Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello to you. Welcome back to the channel where you join me in the south of France for the launch of the new Mercedes-AMG G63. It's the new G-Class as well as the range-topping version from AMG, but naturally this edition one right behind me is the car that we're going to be driving out of this whole lineup of the new cars. We're going to be taking a good in-depth look at it, driving it on the road and on a special off-roading track that they've set up for us today. So let's get started and take a look at this car that I'm going to be driving. As the cars get on their way, G63s and a G500 here also in the dark green. You can hear a bit of the noise from the car adjacent to mine. But the G63, or the new G-Class in general, very much maintains that unique appearance, the iconic G-Class styling. It's a rugged off-roader, it has a boxy silhouette, but of course also all-wheel drive, differential locks. It's based on the ladder-type frame, it has a low-range gearbox. To the casual observer, you might not necessarily instantly see what has changed, and we'll go over that in more detail later on. Just updated slightly on the exterior, but significantly underneath the skin. So let's jump in, get this drive started for the day before we take a better look around very, very shortly. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I've always felt that the G-Classes of different generations are particularly cool cars. They are so distinctive, they're unique. The rugged looks clearly built for going off-road, and then you have the absurd creations that they've built on the platforms like the G63 6x6, the massive six-wheeler, the G650 Landaulet with the V12 and the Maybach Landaulet interior with the folding roof, the G500 4x4 squared, basically really cool cars. However, I'm not going to lie, when I drove the previous gen G63, the normal four-wheeled AMG variant, I was a little bit disappointed. Now I know these cars are built for their ruggedness and for being driven off-road, but driving it on normal tarmac, I wasn't expecting it to be a great car. But even then, it was still a little bit uninspiring. Now I can tell you already, this is vastly improved, and that is because basically, although the looks might be quite similar to how the previous gen was, it is all new. There is a new engine, new suspension, new frame, new gearbox setup, new driving modes. You now have, as we're familiar with from other Mercedes models, the ability to change your different driving mode and how the car is set up. So from slippery to comfort to Sport Plus, and even individual mode if you want to completely customize the car. Then if you engage one of the three Diff Lock buttons, you have G mode, where you then have access to some off-roading driving modes as well. So a whole lot of configurability of the car. Now I'm driving at the moment in regular comfort. We're going to go through the different modes as we push the car on a little bit later on, but you also have the Amg Exhaust with a button to make things a little bit louder. And I can hear that already because one of the big things is now having the new 4-litre Biturbo V8, an engine that I particularly love from many different cars, including my AMG GTR, but obviously it's featuring across the range. And also in here, by the way, this is basically the interior out of an S-Class. It is an S-Class AMG performance steering wheel. We have the dual 12.3-inch digital displays as part of the widescreen cockpit. We have some lovely trims and stitching embroideries and the like on these seats, some carbon fibre trim, some custom Edition 1 trim inside the car. Basically, it's a really nice place to be, and we're on a road that you would not normally consider this to be at home in. And yes, there's some roll, obviously. It's 2.5 tons, it's 2,495 kilos, but it's a massive step on from the previous gen, and this is in comfort mode, where obviously it's going to wallow around a little bit more. If we use the toggle and go down into Sport, or even Sport Plus, where obviously the gearbox is dropping down, or I can blip it manually down another gear, and there's a button here to hold that. This is where, goodness me, it gets a move on as well. 0 to 62 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour is just 4.5 seconds in a G-Wagon. That is quite frankly absurd, and actually already I can feel, obviously it's a little bit firmer over any kind of bumps, but it's a G-Wagon, so it's not exactly uncomfortable, and it just gets a move on. It's so much better. The front end feel is not lost all over the place as it was before. Anyway, I'm talking a little bit too much. Let's pull over, have a proper look around, run over some of the facts, figures and numbers, and then we'll get out on the road to drive it a little bit more. Let's take a more detailed look around the new car then, talk about some of the familiarities, some of the differences versus the previous generation, and the specifics to this car, the G63, and in particular, the Edition 1, so the model that's only available in the first year of production. Now I'm going to jump out in a second, but just quickly before we do, the interior in here, the dashboard, the driver's cockpit, so to speak, is fantastic. These large dual digital displays that we've seen in other models like the E-Class, the S-Class, the AMG performance steering wheel, some traditional features like the triple chromed buttons here for the diff locks, the traditional grab handle over there for the passenger, and just a very nice finish to the interior. But we'll come back to this in a second. What I'd like to do right now is just open the door, because right here are the side exit exhaust pipes. Listen to this. Not bad at all, hey? So let's switch the car off for the moment and jump out. We'll come back in and take a proper look around everything in there, press all the buttons shortly. But it is so iconic as a G-Class. You look at this car, there is no mistaking at all what you're looking at. Many changes, edges are slightly more curved, the windows are less aggressive, the general shapes of the car ever so slightly updated, but still very, very true to the original car. One of the biggest differences though, of course, is the new engine. So in both the G500 and the G63, you have a 4-litre Biturbo V8. In here, you have 585 horsepower and 850 Newton meters of torque. We'll have a look under the hood in a moment. But you look around the car, the Edition 1 is finished with all of the red accents that you can see, the contrasting mirrors, for example, but the AMG version gives you the wider arches, it gives you the new look to the front end, the more aggressive bumper for more cooling that comes through. You also get the new Panamericana style grille that was introduced on the AMG GTR that's making its way across the line with the central Mercedes-Benz star in the middle, being the radar cruise control for that side of things, the technology features in the car. You get the side exit exhaust, AMG specific wheels, the side step as well, and around the back, traditionally, of course, the rear door with the wheel mounted. If we just open this up, it's the feel of all of these, the clunky feel that you get from the very mechanical locking system. Even in there, we've got some nice diamond quilting and stitching at the very back. But I love, as you open and close, that solid thud that you had on previous gens that's still been maintained. Of course, they've had to make the doors completely watertight around the base, all part of the car's increased wading depth, up from 60mm to 70mm. Some more off-roading characteristics and numbers about this car. Let's start with the ground clearance. So it's based on a reworked ladder type frame. There's no subframe, which means everything that would normally be underneath is hidden away. That means in this case, ground clearance is now increased by 6mm to 241mm in total. Around the front, the angle of approach, so from the tyre contact point up through the front bumper, is now increased 1 degree to 31. There's also a 1 degree increase at the angle of departure at the rear, up to 30 degrees. It won't surprise you that the G63 is a permanent all-wheel drive setup, but rather than the 50-50 distribution in the previous car, it is now 40% to the front, 60% to the rear, and that's to make it more sporty and more agile. And talking of more agile, let's come and have a look at the engine. Any excuse to open the doors, hey, and feel that mechanical clunk again. So it's somewhere down here. Yep, there we go. Again, in traditional style, there is a high, proud front bonnet, but lurking under here, if I can find the catch, is the power plant from a Falterback. It's an engine we're becoming very familiar with, the 4-litre Biturbo V8. It has 2 twin-scroll turbochargers, and in this case, 585 horsepower, 850 Newton meters of torque. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, as I said, is just 4.5 seconds. So again, the agility helping under acceleration when you consider the weight of this car. Top speed is limited by default to 220 kilometers an hour, but with the driver's package can be increased to 240. But of course, that's sitting up front underneath a very nice carbon fiber cover, hiding away that engine. Not too much to see. Let's close that back down, give it a nice thud. There we go. It's all, you know, the indicators sticking out over the top, the clunks that you feel. It is that old school element in a new car. So you also have new multi-beam LED headlights. These are very, very trick. They can blank out certain areas of the distance that are in front of you so as not to dazzle or blind oncoming traffic or vehicles. Again, just walking around past the front grille, everything's slightly more rounded than before. Everything was a bit more edgy and squared off slightly on the previous model. With the Edition 1 package, you get a very highly equipped car, but also features like the contrast door mirrors with the red accent stripe. You get the pinstripe around the outside of the wheels, 22-inch wheel options on this car. This colour is called Designo Platinum Magno, Magno being their name for satin paintwork. You get the AMG style stripes that you see alongside the car. And as I mentioned, the Edition 1 is only available for the first full year of production of the car at all. So let's come now and take in the interior a little bit more. And the first thing I'm going to do is fire it it up actually to get some air conditioning running for me, and also turn on the ventilated seat. That will be a very welcome feature right now because it is very, very warm. Things like the headlight styling comes through towards the air conditioning vents that you have in here. The rumbles into life. But it's all, I mean, like I said, traditional mixed with S-Class. So you have the seat controls on the doors. Oh, I don't know if I necessarily closed it properly. Needs a proper thud. That you have, you know, in other Mercedes models. You have the Burmester sound system, the brilliant audio, heated seats, cooled seats, the assistance and safety systems, for example, when you're drifting across lanes, the screens that we've had a look at already, the steering wheel, the AMG performance wheel, where you can control the displays from these touchpads and go through different modes and displays, and you can see it's even got a race timer and a G-force sensor. Oh, which mode have I gone to? You can see there we go. That kind of gives you some of the intent. You can customize the display and have a different view should you prefer. We'll click some of those buttons later. The navigation is up full screen here. The Edition 1 also gives you the upgraded interior, so the nicer leather interior package, this custom carbon fiber that has red, as you can just see, weaved into it, the nice stitching around the car. Basically, you feel like you're in a luxury car when you're sat inside here. Everything is super, super nice. We've got a sunroof up top as well, and there's a lot more space. So there's 38mm more front seat legroom, and 150mm more legroom for the rear as well. We'll have a look back there later on, but similar finish to the materials in the back. Anyway, there's a nice road here. Let's go and drive it some more and experience the different modes on the road side of things with the G63. The first thing I'm going to say is that fairly obviously, if you have a windscreen that is raked this vertically, you get a whole lot of wind noise when you're driving along at speed. That's not exactly surprising, but then you have this high up seating position. It just feels, it's not actually that big a car, you have to remember. The G-Class, it's an SUV, but it's not a huge, huge, huge SUV, so it's actually quite a nice car to drive in town environments, which is why you see so many in London, Dubai, a lot around Frankfurt, to be completely honest. However, this is a very twisty road, so let us go into, well, let's go into sport mode first rather than comfort, just to get a feel of the different damper settings and the like. So we're currently in the first, or the second I should say, of the 3 different suspension modes, from soft to sport up to sport plus. The car has a new suspension setup, so it has independent double wishbones at the front, and then it has a fixed rigid axle at the back with 5-link suspension, which basically means that it's a bit sportier, has a slightly more comfortable ride, and has just been improved in basically every single possible way. The car itself is 55% stiffer as well, so you're not going to feel it bending and flexing so much when you drive it in a dynamic way. Yeah, there's a nice little bit of noise coming in the cabin. I quite like the sport mode setup and configuration actually. If you go one further into Sport Plus, that's where it will drop the gear down a few more gears. And because you've got this 9-speed AMG speed shift, if you put your foot down really hard, it will drop 3 gears in one. So you won't have to wait for it to jump down through each one, so to speak. It can instinctively just do the honours and get on with it. Now, all of these different settings you can configure manually depending how you want them, in terms of the manual gearbox, the noise from the exhaust. So I think the exhaust only actually gets properly noisy if you're up in Sport Plus. Yes, that's where we were, of course. But now I'm going to go manual with the paddles. It would revert to automatic if I don't press that button. So we've now got the stiffest suspension, so to speak. And it's amazing me that this is a G63, because honestly, the previous one just didn't have this kind of composure. And I suppose you do have to remember it's still big and kind of floating around. It's not like a supercar or a proper sports car, but it's a different league to what it was in the previous generation. The shifts are quick, there's a nice sound from them, the deep grumble that you expect out of this car, the feeling of power, which is basically what it does. You drive it and you feel almost invincible. You feel like you're, you know, strong and can just push everybody out the way. Now that you should do that when you're driving, but that's the sensation it gives you, that basically nothing is going to be able to mess with you when you're driving in a G-Wagon. And then you combine it with the luxury and the interior comforts, you know, the audio, the Burmester sound system, all your Bluetooth and everything else you could possibly want, and you've got a package that's basically quite a comfortable car to actually drive on. I mean, like, picture the scenario. You've got a car that you don't want to put miles on, you stick it in a trailer and drive it across Europe in one of these. How cool would that be? That's kind of like my dream in the background. Maybe one day. Let's see if that becomes an option. Maybe for tugging around, not the GTR, that's my main mileage car, but maybe the Ford GT or something in future. Anyways, just driving, you know, obviously speed bumps, non-issue. Suspension is reasonably soft, even in the firmest mode when you do that. And then you put your foot down as you come out of town, and my goodness, it just flies. It absolutely flies. It's a crazy feeling in a vehicle like this to get moving like that. This is a cool location actually to bring it. This is a rough road right now, so obviously in the roughest setting is not the best, but you could actually even, in Sport Plus, put the suspension softer. You can do everything how you want it. We'll experience some of the Diff Lock buttons and how they set up, I think, when we're in the off-roading environment. I'm not the biggest expert when it comes to those, but in terms of general comfort and functionality inside the car, it's everything we love about a Mercedes. The materials and finish of an S-Class, the technology that we're familiar with from the E-Class, from anything else, insert your choice, with a massively, dramatically improved G-Wagon. To be completely honest, I really enjoy it so far. Honestly, a car of this shape and size should not be able to drive like this. It is nothing like the previous generation at all. And the amount of power is just incredible. I knew it would be much more than I've experienced in the previous one, but the steering is so much better, everything is better, the sound is cool, but the rate at which it gets moving, I'm having to take this in, and this is a car that you can then use, as we're going to use it later on, for properly exploring the off-road and going over some ridiculous land shapes and bits of sculpture in the ground that you just shouldn't be able to do. It's an amazing package. I just can't believe how they've transformed it. It's moved on completely into a car that just combines so many different things so brilliantly. This is the kind of road typically you'd want to be driving in a small, nimble, maybe even a hot hatch kind of car. But I'm not unhappy about being here in the G63. So okay, let's try and be a little bit critical for a moment. What do I not like? Perhaps there is still some body roll. You know, if you're throwing it down a mountain road like this one, the gear shifts could be a touch more responsive maybe, but then it's trying to put so much torque through to be used as a car in that kind of environment, you know, when you're trying to get traction on the wheels in sand or in wet mud or anything like that. It's a hard one to fault outside of the price, to be honest. The UK start price is 140,000. You will do nearly £20,000 extra for an Edition 1 package. The Euros price is about 160,000, and then add on 20,000 euros for the Edition 1 there. So it's not a cheap car. But if this is what you're after, I don't think there's much that could do it better. I mean, even here, chucking it into a really tight corner, and then out of the straight you go. Maybe it's a little bit wafty there when you put down that much power. That's kind of to be expected, 850 Newton meters. But it turns into these really tight hairpins quite nicely. You can keep your hands in one position even there. What a road, and what a surprise. What an absolute surprise package. Honestly, if you asked me, I think maybe at the beginning, what I was expecting based on the previous car, it was not this. It was not this at all. I feel like this could give some sports cars a run for their money on a road like this. And it's quite easy to be precise and accurate with as well, which is obviously quite important as a car gets larger, but helped by the visibility and the high position. I've got a massive smile on my face. I'm loving this today. You know that you're having a whale of a time when you start to get the tyres squealing on a road. It's a very warm day and this is super twisty, and it's a big heavy car of course, but I'm having a whale of a time today. So much fun. And one other thing I quite like about the car is the visibility. There is so much glass around you. The A-pillars are tiny, but towards the back as well, you can see everything, and the car is actually quite small. The footprint is not all that big, and even if it was, because of how angular it is and how edgy the sides are, you know exactly where everything is, even the front, because you have the indicators sticking up at the corners. You can see exactly where the front of the car is, exactly where the side of the car is, because it goes straight down, which just makes it a really enjoyable car to drive because it's so easy to position. Then you add in the soundtrack and the power. This is cool. This is really cool. By this point, you've probably gathered that I am really quite keen on this car. However, there is one significant niggle that is really bugging me, and that is the wind noise. Whether it's the wind on the front windscreen or the way the airflow comes around the car across the door mirrors, I don't know exactly, but it is a very present sound, and it's a particularly windy day today, I'll give it that, but you can't escape the sound of the wind coming past, which just gets a little bit on my nerves. Now, forgetting that for a moment, it is basically perfect. I mean, the G-Class is to the G-Class like, say, a Phantom is to luxurious chauffeur vehicles. It is the only one that does what it does. in this way, anything like it. You can't see a competitor even ever existing because it's such a defined market. But what they have done with this car is just phenomenal. Hats off to Mercedes and AMG. The new G63 is very, very special, and this is just on the roads. Let's go find the off-road course and see what that's about. Over that way is where I'm going to head in a moment, as well as checking out the car park with all the different specifications of the G500s and G63s. Before we get there, just have a little look at this. Mercedes-Benz Classic have brought out a lineup of different G-Wagons through the ages, some fairly special ones, but what's quite interesting about the early cars is how distinctly familiar they still are. Let's head though over to the car park and have a look at some of the different colours you can have for the new models. Inside the exhibition here, we have an example of the new ladder frame that is used in the car. Quite literally, if you look at the way the steel chassis is shaped here, you have the ladder rungs going through it. But this is exactly why, by having the gearbox mounted above, by having all the components right above that, you get so much ground clearance underneath. I always love seeing the stripped out underpinnings that create a car up close like this, and an experience you don't normally get to see afterwards. Half of it perfectly clean, the other half fresh from being driven on the off-road tracks around here. These definitely mean business, as you can see, that car going up over the rocks there, but we are surrounded by G-classes of all varieties and colours and specs. As I said, mine is actually parked on the very end there, but here, next to one another, we have a G63 and a G500, so you can see the main differences from the front. The AMG has the Panamericana front grille and a more aggressive lower bumper, whereas the G500 has the more traditional Mercedes-Benz grille and a smoother, more relaxed design, we could say as well. Also smaller wheels. It just has a V8 badge on the side as opposed to the V8 Biturbo. This car makes 422 horsepower, still plenty, but quite significantly less than the 585 of the 63. So the one I'm pointing at is brilliant blue, a colour you can get across the Mercedes range. Really, really smart, especially in the low sun we have right now. White is perhaps going to be a more traditional colour for the cars. I think a lot of them will be ordered in white and black. We have the dark green also over here, which is quite interesting, just to come and have a quick look at that one. G500 as well, almost an olive green, I'm not sure of the exact colour name. And the blue catching more sun on it. Edition 1 on the white, again with the red pinstripes and the AMG style stickers down the side of the car. Hyacinth red, I like this colour as well a lot. It's just got very windy here, my apologies for that in the afternoon, but let's go find one of these G500s and jump in. Here we go then, just swapped over, so it's my turn to drive. I'm with Wolfgang, who's
hello,
the man in charge right now. What are we doing?
We will drive downhill so that you will never forget it.
That sounds good to me. So, into drive, we have the centre diff lock on and the rear diff lock. We're in low range, because obviously that's a big part of this car. This is some pretty gnarly ground here. My first sensation of this then is even just going downhill. It's not taking any particular skill to do so, right? The car is...
Oh, I'm not so sure.
Well, right, so far, I mean, yeah. It's riding over this terrain.
You see the cone?
Yep.
Take a right.
Okay.
And I will bring you into the manual mode.
Okay, so manual. It's in second gear at the moment.
And then do a sharp left. Sharp left.
And we're going down there.
And you can see this ugly surface.
Yeah.
But you will drive it down.
And which way do we go at the bottom?
Keep a little bit right. And then, yeah, keep it. Now.
In first gear, second gear?
It's the first gear is in.
Now it's in first. It was in second.
Ah, it was in second. First.
And we're going down to the right.
We will continue to the right. And
oh my good lord.
Now we will make a stop because you are thinking, ooh, 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 ooh.
Yeah.
But you can see more than 10 centimeters of clearance are still over.
That's absolutely crazy. This is ridiculous.
Sharp right.
Sharp right.
Sharp right, and
here.
then aim alongside the bushes.
Okay, so
sharp right
full
and
lock. Keep some power.
Keep, yeah.
Yeah, this
keep
is good.
Constant moving. Keep constant moving.
Can't see anything.
Right. Keep it right and move. Keep it right and move. Oh, now keep it right. Yep. Moving left, left, left.
No
left,
way did we
left,
just get up there.
Left. Yeah. Perfect. Done.
No way. Okay, so we're gonna.
However you driving.
Cross over this terrain.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got to go for the most aggressive part, which is right here.
Yeah.
Goodness me. It's so smooth in the way it does it.
downhill.
Keep the steering downhill.
That's all.
But let the car do the rest. I'm not touching the brake. The car's doing it all with low range. Wow. The angle of approach at the front just lets you do that.
31.
Just holding it in manual, down we go. Goodness me. It would be hard to walk down here. Okay, we're stopped at 40% incline.
Yeah, and now please continue.
With all the diff locks engaged. Not even any slip, just straight away up we go.
Yeah.
A bit of water up ahead.
Yeah, and now you have to decide, reverse or driving through.
Of course we drive through.
So, yes, I will.
Centre diff lock.
I would suggest.
Centre diff lock and rear diff lock.
So 10 to 12 kilometers, it's okay. Now you feel the mass of the water. Give the throttle.
Yeah, you feel completely the mass of the water.
And now stop.
Stopping. That's definitely above the door line.
What can you hear? The exhaust.
Ah, the exhaust is bubbling the water.
Yeah.
From the heat.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I feel like my feet are below the waterline.
Yeah.
So I know it can go 70 centimeters of wading depth.
Yeah.
With ease. And we're out.
Yeah.
Wow. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Welcome.
Awesome experience. Appreciate it a lot.
Welcome.
That was very cool then. If you come to the car here, you can actually see the wading depth on the side of the car, literally that deep into that stream of water. Incredible, incredible experience. Anyway, let's go find a G63 now for a different style of off-roading.
We have 3 different modes more for driving on off-road. That means if you activate the center differential lock for hard off-road or so, then we have 3 different settings more.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best is the trail setting. It's for a setting like a road, which we have here in front of us.
I love the click when the doors lock.
Yeah. They didn't change it.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Never change something that's perfect.
Yeah. You can do it. You can do a little bit faster. It's absolutely no problem. More fluently.
Just don't jump.
No problem. It's no problem. You don't have to brake here. Just go.
Really?
Yeah. Just go.
Okay.
It's a G.
Yeah. It's a G. That seems to be the phrase.
If you are too fast, then I will tell you. Yeah. But if I say nothing, it's absolutely no problem. I will switch from the trail mode to the rock mode.
Okay.
Not that we need it, but just that you see the difference.
Okay.
You can continue. You feel the suspension is harder now.
Yeah, the suspension is harder, the response is less.
The response is less on the beginning. You feel it good. On the beginning, the response is less. But if you push harder, then the maximum power comes abruptly.
Okay, yeah,
because,
I get that.
Because it's for rocks. And like in the US, and so sometimes they have these huge rocks where they have to climb up and so on. And if they come to the rocks, they need the power from the engine very smooth and soft. And then if they want to go up,
then you need all the power.
Immediately all the power.
Okay.
And so the setting is special made for that one. Yeah, the steering is a bit stiffer and so on. And just that you can compare it if you go to the sand mode. Of course we don't have sand here, but now you feel the steering. It's not so directly, it's more indirect.
Yeah, same with the throttle.
Yeah, same with the throttle.
It's a bit softer.
Yeah, and the suspension is softer, but not as soft as for the trail mode.
Okay.
Just before. But I prefer we go to the trail mode. This is perfect for that conditions here.
Yeah.
And what's the amazing part, especially for me, it's completely the same car which you used on the road.
The same car that drove that dynamically.
On the road, that dynamically on the tarmac. And you also can do that with the same car. And this huge range. So at first we go in the comfort mode.
Yeah.
Then you see how it is with the soft steering, soft suspension, how it works. Okay. And then later on we change it. Yeah. Here you can go to the left. It's fine.
So in the comfort mode, you definitely feel it floating around quite a lot.
You can go from the comfort mode to the Sport Plus mode.
Sport Plus here.
Sport Plus. You hear it, you feel it on the steering. Yeah. Suspension is hard, and the response it's more directly.
Yeah.
On the.
but it's a little bit firm.
It's a tight one.
The ride control is a bit aggressive.
And then the next tight corner is coming. It's the next tight. And now it comes a fluently part here. It's a fluently part.
So Sport Plus was my favourite mode on the road.
Yeah, I believe you, I believe it. It's an easy ride, you don't have to brake. It's easy ride over the crest. Just keep on. Yeah. Okay, and here you have to brake. It's a mid-fast left-hander.
So even in Sport Plus, on this kind of terrain, it's not that bad.
Stay on the inside. There's more grip. So take care, it gets tight here after the blue corners. It's fine, huh?
Yeah. It's amazing. This is how I had the car set up that I enjoyed so much on the road. Same settings on a trail.
Yeah.
I'm lurking in the shadows then after a lot of time today out in the sunshine, but what an incredible experience. Driving in the G63 there in the same configuration on dirty and rocky trails that I was driving earlier on a smooth paved tarmac mountain road. It can be incredibly dynamic at one end of the spectrum, but effortlessly cross terrain like that at the other. I'm still trying to work out how that is actually possible, but it has blown my mind what this car can actually do. As they say, it's a G, and there goes my neighbour car right now, literally. I don't know. Anyway, awesome thing. We're going to have a look now at the interior in more detail. I'll get to the front and run you through the screens in a second, but to get us started, let's head around to the rear and talk a bit more about the boot and the back of the car and then the space for the rear passengers. So as you know, as I've said, love that click and that feeling, but basically because it's a big box shape, you have a lot of practicality. There is an optional shelf there over the top of the back, and there's also a floor to stop luggage sliding around, but you can imagine you can fit a lot of stuff back here. So another one just gets set to move on out there. The rear seats 40/60 folding with a through load as well, so you've got lots and lots of room if you need it back here. And I particularly like how the rear door has the red diamond stitching on the leather panel there. I think that's a really nice touch. I mean, basically this is a 5-door, oh, there goes G500 convertible, previous generation. 5-door car in effect. We come round, spare wheel housed inside the black and silver dual-tone painted covering. Back here, similar finish to the front really, you know, from the carbon trim to the illuminated AMG door sills and floor mat, the lovely materials used for the seats as well. And if I take a step inside, oh, you even have the round air conditioning vents back there. There is no shortage of space. I mean, lots of room up there. Front seats in my position, and there's plenty of room in the back too, and I'm slouched down in the seats, to be honest. So more than enough room back here. You've got air conditioning vents as well, and I particularly like just the fact that you have the red seat belts to match with the materials used on the seat themselves, perforation, and you even have heated seats in the back as well, which is just a nice touch. I think everything is finished so well. I'm a big fan of that. Anyway, close up the back, jump into the front where we can start going through everything. Maybe even before I step in. Door window controls and the mirrors as well. Beneath that, the heated and ventilated seats, lock, unlock, your memory positions for the seat controls. I like them being on the door. It just gives you easy ability to know what exactly you're moving and where it's going. Same kind of trim as we've seen in the rear of the car. Small step up to get in over the AMG side sill, but it's not difficult or unpleasant to do that and to make that move into the car. Let's kick it into life just quickly. The burbles fire up, so we can start taking a more detailed look around here at what we've got. So positionable air vents, rotate them to turn them on and off. Very nice. Down beneath that we've got our lights controls, we've got the electronic handbrake switch, we've got our lane assist, turn off the parking beepers. A couple more options I suppose you could have. Now the car does actually have stop start, so in comfort mode for sure it will run. It will also do cylinder deactivation if you're driving in comfort mode, so cut 4 of the 8 cylinders for fuel economy reasons, which is a nice little thing that it's able to do. Obviously the ginormous 12.3-inch digital displays that work together. You control the main driver screen from the left side and you control the central screen from the right side, which is nice, using these touch pads to go through the different modes depending what exactly you're doing and where you want to have the car going through. And then the left one you can move from the left side to the right side and go up and down through different modes, G-sensors, whatever you want to have up really. Loads of information that you can show on those screens. You also have all your cruise control, your adaptive radar cruise control settings, and then you have all your phone settings and audio on the right hand side, and then it's just got a nice flat bottom as well to finish that off. Coming around here, the engine start-stop button next to the automatic stop, or sorry, the stop of the automatic start-stop if you would prefer. Then in the middle, these are your diff locks. So if you engage the first diff lock mode, this is where it brings up these extra modes that I referred to earlier: trail, sand, and rock. The center diff lock locks both the front and rear axle to each other. Obviously gives you 1 degree of additional control and stability. If you lock the rear, that locks the rear left to the rear right. And if you lock the front, that locks the front left to the front right. Orange means they're on standby, red means they're fixed. So this is all pretty easy to control and operate, to be honest, depending how you want to have it. When you've got the diff locks active, you don't have ESP or traction control, but then you go back to completely standard. It will unlock that, and you then toggle through your modes using the dynamic selector down here, which you can see there, just going through the different settings. Slippery being the very basic. Super easy to control and actually handle and manage when you start knowing what you're doing. Then you have the toggle for manual gearbox to retain it on the paddles so that it doesn't automatically go back into automatic. Your 3 different variable stages of the AMG ride control suspension, traction control on or off. On the right side is the button for putting it into low range or high range. Bringing up your parking cameras as well, nice thing, 360 surround cameras, so we can just scroll through these. You can look up the front camera if you want to see over a crest that you're driving up to. You can look out the sides. That's quite nice actually. You can look straight back, all sorts of different settings, and you can see even there we've got the towing bar at the back if you wanted to pull a trailer with a car on board. Very easy to do. Active parking assist, the car will park itself naturally, don't they all these days? And then above that, the exhaust mode, adjustable exhaust, louder, quieter, and your volume. Then here are your controls and your ability to write on the pad in the center if you want to input anything to the car. So if we actually go back to home just quickly to see some more of what we have in here, and we go to vehicle, this is quite interesting, we can go down to dynamic select, and in dynamic select you can see a lot more information about the mode that you are in. So individual mode you can customize and set up exactly how you would like it. Not sure how you'd want it in this car, but that's to be enjoyed and played with. Engine data is always a little bit of fun. It will show you some charts of what's going on. For example, as you can see there, that crackle is awesome fun. Then vehicle data, just so when you're on the move you can bring up G sensors and your angles, what the diff is doing or how it's set up. And finally you have dynamic data, and here I believe if you change through your modes you will get slightly different displays. If we go back to comfort for a second, we can see some things there. Actually, maybe if we go into vehicle data itself in here, when we lock the diffs and go into trail mode, there you get some information about how that's set up, and you can see actually it's a completely different display when you're in that mode. So if we now go through sand, you can hear the revs go up, so you've got more instant torque available when you're in the mode. It just changes the different displays and what's available to you. So that is actually all pretty clever. I like the levels of control that you've got, and we haven't obviously gone through the usual things, so to speak, the navigation, the media controls, telephone, in-car office, the Mercedes Connect, Mercedes Me Connect, which lets you see where your car is, check if it's locked. We've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which are nice touches as well. Lots of apps you can download. Your phone can tell you the car's fuel status if it needs a service, and then you've got a ton of settings for things like there's touch inputs, your lighting. The car has 64 different coloured lights that you can have around. You can configure the displays and change the design style, so you can go from sport, classic and progressive. If I just change it now, you can see classic there coming up with the dual display. I like how that could be a rev counter, or in this case it could also be the navigation screen, and then progressive as well there, but clearly they had it prepared for us today in the sport mode, so if we revert back to that you get a more sporty rev counter. Then on this screen, if we go back home, you can see how it is the complete digital interface. AMG performance screens is where we are, with the lap timer, boost pressure gauge, G-force sensor, your dynamic settings. That's actually all really quite cool, isn't it? And then you can bring up normal trip, navigation, basically everything. You see the point very quickly here, and the same on the right side. You can change what the right side is showing as well. Access to so much information you wouldn't believe it. All works super smoothly. Then over to the passenger side, the grab handle with the carbon fiber inlay that we talked about earlier. Smallish glove box, to be honest. But then over here, exact same controls that you have over on the driver's side too for your seat movements. The headrests have quite a nice finish to them. with that quilted almost leather that they have in the middle. Generally the leather, this is quite an expensive option if you don't get it as part of the Edition 1 package to opt for, to have this luxurious finish to the interior. But for me, it all works very, very nicely. To be honest, it's lovely. It's the interior that you see and we're a little bit familiar with from the S-Class and the like, and it sounds like that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Right, let's switch that off. Back to some peace and quiet for the second step back out. So, there we have it. The Mercedes-AMG G63. What a drive today has been. I didn't really know how I was going to feel about the car. I was a little bit worried my previous impressions of the previous generation might be resumed almost, but I have been completely surprised and taken aback in a very good way, and pleasantly surprised at how capable this car is, how it can be dynamic, it can be so capable when you go to an off-road course. It's luxurious on the interior, it just has a bit of wind noise, and it costs a lot of money. That's the only considerations. No doubt they're going to be hugely popular in the dunes of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, around central London, around Monaco, and around cities in Germany, and you can see why. Wouldn't it be a cool car to tow another car on a trailer behind? I'm going to look into this a little bit more. Anyway, I have had the most incredible day. A big thanks to Mercedes-AMG for the opportunity to come and drive the G63 today, for the instructors who took me out earlier, Wolfgang and Peter. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, getting to know an awful lot more about this car, but that hopefully won't be the last we see with it. I'd love to do some more with the new G63 in the future. Anyway, that is it for now. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, guys. I appreciate your support, and I will see you again very, very soon. Cheers!